Okay, everyone, I'm Jeff, and so I'm going to talk about some of the personality traits that go along with having anorexia. And so we have a quick little list, and then we'll go into more detail about them in just the next couple slides. So people who suffer from anorexia are often perfectionists. They're very goal-driven. They need everything to be exactly how they want it to be. They're very anxious sometimes. They suffer from a lot of anxiety. They're often obsessive, sometimes suffering from OCD, which just increases their urge to control everything they're doing, and that often translates over into controlling what they're eating, causing the anorexia. Next up, we have fear of conflict. There are people pleasers who are often they're rule followers. They follow everything to the T, exactly how it should be. They're often very controlling, or they may have an anti-fat attitude. So they're just nothing personally that is causing the anorexia. They don't want to gain any weight. They don't like people who are larger. They don't want to get any larger. Okay, so first off, the perfectionists. These ones, as we can see, they're always having the need to improve. They need everything to be just so. They need everything down to a science. It has to be perfect. They're typically great students, so we know perfectionists in our everyday life, at least while we're in school, are those who are trying to do well on everything they set their mind to. They want to be perfect in school, get good grades, make sure nothing gets left undone. So they have the need to achieve and do well on everything. Next up, they tend to have unrealistic expectations of themselves. So they're striving towards these weight goals that really aren't healthy. They're not even possible in some cases, and it can lead to various consequences that go along with it. They're often very concerned with what other people think about them, and that goes along to they think everyone's watching them, thinking about their weight, focusing on how much they're eating, doing things like that. And so this leads to them becoming anorexic and continuing this lifestyle because they think everyone is just focusing on how fat they are or how much weight they've gained. Okay, and so this does end up in a cycle that just sometimes just can't end for them. They want to get thinner, that people still see them as big, large, and they just keep getting thinner, leading to some serious consequences. So next up, we have anxiety, which is another big personality trait that those who suffer from anorexia have. The anorexics tend to have previous anxiety issues, but even before the eating disorder occurs, it just kind of pushes them into that direction. They also tend to be very anxious when situations arrive when they have to eat in public. And this isn't necessarily, it doesn't mean outside the house in public, it's just in front of other people. They don't want other people to notice how little they are eating or how much they are eating, depending on what they're worrying about. And this often translates over into stress in the family. And one of the biggest times of stress for these people is during holidays. So you go home for winter break. Where are you going home? It's Christmas. Family's around, friends are around. What do you guys do to celebrate this time? Everyone always goes out and eats. Whether if you have a big meal at home, you go out to dinner. It's a huge time of anxiety for people who are suffering from anorexia because they have to focus on what they're eating. They don't want to eat too much because they don't want to gain weight, but they have to make sure that their family members and friends aren't noticing that they aren't eating. And so it causes unnecessary stress and just a lot of problems with not only what they're doing to themselves, but the interactions they're having with their family members. And next up, we have obsessive compulsive personalities. And so many people who suffer from anorexia do suffer from OCD as well. They're just too, OCD often leads its way into anorexia. So OCD is a compulsive personality disorder, which anorexics typically suffer from. They tend to be rule followers, critical of themselves, and hate disorder. All of those, if you have these characteristics, it does not mean that you will be anorexic, but those who suffer from anorexia often suffer from these personality traits. The OCD causes them to do specific things throughout the day, whether it's focusing on what they're eating, they have to only eat a certain amount or do certain things. And because of the OCD, they have a lot of anxiety, and it leads back to the other traits that they often have. And so it all kind of comes into one. If they don't do these OCD whatever the disorder is having them need to do, that increases the anxiety and just causes stress that makes the anorexia just worse. So for example, picking or pulling apart small portions of food, obsessive thoughts about food, and even hoarding food. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't going to eat, they're just going to eat this tiny bit, make sure it's all perfect and try to relieve that OCD pressure. An anorexic who suffers from obsessive compulsive disorder is not diagnosed with simply or with only OCD due to their obsession with food and fear of weight gain. So it doesn't mean that if you have OCD, you're going to have anorexia. It's just the OCD often leads into it. And then next up, I think we're on to medical complications, and I'll pass that along over to Sydney.